Let us be called by bell and bird, by stars and streams, by the beat of our hearts. Let us be called together in covenant. Let us be called back to our true self, the co-arising web of existence which constitutes us and of which each of us is the whole entire web. Today, with the bell sounding at Deer Park Monastery in California and the black-capped chickadee singing in many backyards, let us especially remember our covenant to affirm and promote the seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
Please sing along with our virtual service pandemic opening hymn, Kindred, we now meet to worship.
Kindred, we now meet to worship, reaching out through screen and phone. Though we dwell in isolation, we don't have to be alone. Worshipping beyond our building, our connections no less real. Though we cannot meet in person, covenant unites us still. Siblings share a song of gladness, lifting spirits, spreading cheer, so that in these days of sadness we won't be consumed by fear. In this time of mass confusion, sickness, loss, and overwhelm, let's encourage one another. Hands not joined, but hearts are held. Friends, be gentle with each other. There's so much we're going through. May this be a time for healing, holding space for grieving too. Bodies, minds, and hearts are weary. Anguish fills the aching soul. But we know with perseverance, broken hearts can be made whole.
Good morning. Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation at White Plains, New York, formerly Lenape territory. I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, minister, coming to you live from our congregation's sanctuary.
I'm Tracy Brenneman, Community UU religious educator.
Good morning. I'm Adam Kent, CUUC music director, here at my piano in Manhattan.
Welcome to this home of liberal religion, which upholds four truths.
It's a blessing you were born.
It matters what you do.
Your experience of the divine is true.
And you don't have to go it alone.
So thank you for being here. It's good to be together. Our shared light is a beacon of hope.
It's the Sunday at the end of the seventh full week of spring. The waning crescent moon will be new on Tuesday. We have begun the 3-month period of the longest days. From May 5 through August 4th, the White Plains latitude will see more than 14 hours, 10 minutes of daylight each day.
Ramadan Mubarak. The Muslim holy month of prayer and fasting ends at sundown on Wednesday, May 12th.
And today is Mother's Day, in case my own mother is logged in, a day for celebrating our mothers and all the people in our lives who mothered us in whatever form. We honor in deep gratitude all our mothers.
And a special welcome to our visitors. If you're a first-time visitor, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. You'll find a link to our order of service on our website at cuucwp.org. There you'll find other resources to help us keep connected during this time and a donate button. For May, our Share the Plate funds support Hope Meals. We're able to take contributions via the donate button, for your pledge, the plate share, and the minister's discretionary fund.
And now, Board Chair Joe Majak has some news, and then will lead us in lighting our chalices.
Hi, I'm Joe Majak. As the chair of the board for this congregation, I welcome you. The UUA General Assembly is rapidly approaching. It starts on Wednesday, June 23rd, and ends on Sunday, June 27th, and will be 100% virtual, just like last year. Each year, a distinguished speaker is invited to address the General Assembly as the Where Lecture. The big news is that Stacey Abrams will be this year's guest speaker. Stacey Abrams served as Democratic leader of the Georgia House of Representatives for 7 years prior to running for governor of Georgia, where she won more votes than any other Democrat in the state's history. Ms. Abrams launched Fair Fight Action after the 2018 gubernatorial election to bring out the vote and fight voter suppression. She also played a critical role in the election of Georgia Senators John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock. Stacey Abrams received degrees from Spelman College, the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas, and Yale Law School. Also joining Ms. Abrams is Desmond Meade, a formerly homeless returning citizen who overcame many obstacles to become a graduate of Florida International University College of Law and serve in a number of social justice leadership roles. I learned that a returning citizen is the replacement for the former term ex-con or ex-felon, with the intention of destigmatizing the old terminology. The Where Lecture is scheduled for Saturday, June 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. General Assembly registration is required to view the Where Lecture. You get access to the full 5 days of GA sessions and the Where Lecture for the registration fee of $200. I did it last year, and it was an inspiring experience I will never forget. And now it's time to light the chalice. On the seventh Sunday of the season, we dedicate our chalice to the seventh principle of our faith, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Please join with me in the chalice lighting words from Walter Royal Jones. Mindful of truth, ever exceeding our knowledge, and community, ever exceeding our practice, reverently we covenant together, beginning with ourselves as we are, to share the strength of integrity and the heritage of the Spirit in the unending quest for wisdom and love.
From the early Christian church and the Council of Nicaea of 325, European church history focused on doctrine. Europeans spilled a lot of ink and a lot of blood on the finer details of what statements one ought to affirm. Even today, the notion that one's religion is defined by the affirmation of statements is still widespread. The social function of religion is group cohesion. Who's with you? Who can you trust? Europeans used doctrine as a litmus test for who was us and who was them. But in 17th century England, the us-them litmus test shifted. It was less about doctrine than church governance. Episcopal polity, ruled by the bishops, and Presbyterian polity, ruled by groups of elders called presbyters, squared off. Along with polity differences were differences in form of worship, free worship or liturgical worship, prescribed prayer or voluntary prayer, clerical vestments, different elements in the worship services. Doctrinal matters, though, were largely ignored. In the 1640s, the English Parliament made Presbyterianism the polity and worship form of the Church of England, but this was not much enforced. 1660 brought the restoration of the throne under Charles II. The Presbyterians, who tended to be royalists, had high hopes, but Charles soon declared, "Presbyterianism is no religion for a gentleman," and returned the Church of England to episcopal polity and forms. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, doctrinal innovations were spreading. People were, more or less in secret, reading and circulating books by Fausto Sozzini and John Biddle. In 1687, 25 years after John Biddle's death, one Stephen Nye published a history of the Unitarians called also Socinians. It launched the Unitarian controversy that raged through the Church of England, bringing attention again to doctrinal means of distinguishing us from them.
The 24 preludes and fugues of Johann Sebastian Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier stem from the composer's project to write a piece in each of the 24 major and minor keys. In the prelude I'm about to play for you now, paradoxically, after establishing the initial key of E major, Bach needs to modulate or move away from it in order to provide us with a sense of homecoming when it returns at the end.
Now, the spoken invocation, and then sing along with the sung invocation. Our words of invocation are The Journey by Mary Oliver. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. "Mend my life," each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones, but little by little, as you left their voice behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save. Now please sing along our sung invocation with Kim and Georgiana, Spirit of Truth.
Spirit of truth, that dwellest in the mountain, descend, we pray thee, to the marts of earth. Give us to Tweedly diddly dee. 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 Tweet, 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 tweet. He rocks in the treetop all the day long, hopping and a bopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweedly dee. Go rockin' Robin, 'cause we're really gonna rock tonight. Tweet, tweedly dee. Every little swallow, every chickadee, every little bird in the tall oak tree,
The wise old owl,
the big fat crow, flapping their wings, singing go bird go. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweedly dee. Go rockin' Robin, 'cause we're really gonna rock tonight. Tweet, tweedly dee.
a pretty little raven at the bird bandstand.
Taught him how to do the bop and it was grand.
They started going steady and bless my soul.
He out-bopped the buzzard and the oriole. He rocks in the treetop all the day long, hopping and a bopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweedly dee. Go rockin' Robin, 'cause we're really gonna rock tonight. Tweet, tweedly dee, tweedly diddly dee. Tweedly diddly dee, tweedly diddly dee. Tweedly diddly dee, tweedly diddly dee. Tweedly diddly dee, tweet, 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 tweet. He rocks in the treetop all the day long, hopping and a bopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweedly dee. Go rockin' Robin, 'cause we're really gonna rock tonight. Tweet, tweedly dee. Go rockin' Robin, 'cause we're really gonna rock tonight. Tweet, tweedly dee. Tweedly diddly 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 dee. Tweet, 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 tweet.
I am glad to have this opportunity to express my appreciation for the impact CUUC has had in my life. One of the first things I noticed when Ann and I started attending about 7 years ago was that Sunday services were consistently endearing, and the sermons were almost always captivating, and they usually ended before I wanted them to. Then I noticed that CUUC was a community that offered many opportunities to connect with people engaged in meaningful and constructive activities, and with the goodwill that encouraged others to get involved. Now I am grateful to be a part of this community, of people wanting to make a difference, and the uplifting activities I have been able to share that have helped me keep a hopeful outlook through these fraught times. In his book, Emotional Success, The Power of Gratitude, Compassion, and Pride, David Testino said, "Gratitude, compassion, and pride are the right emotions for long-term success. CUUC has been a potent source of gratitude and compassion for me. And CUUC has taught me that pride feels best when it is the pride we have in the accomplishments of those around us." Thanks to the recently created Democracy Matters social justice team, I was encouraged to participate in well-organized and motivating postcard and phone banking campaigns. Though I was not comfortable about phone banking, the fact that it was nonpartisan gave me the confidence to try it. There was a learning curve, but the extremely well-thought-out interactive scripts and the welcoming and supportive UU the Vote and Center for Common Ground campaign leaders made it a bracing experience. At the exhilarating final Zoom meeting for the Georgia runoff phone bank campaign, it was reported that over 800 UUs had phone banked to get out the vote in Georgia, and some people on the call actually threw confetti. The phone banking is continuing, an important component of the resistance to the voter suppression crusades that are sweeping across state legislatures. My participation in RE has also been heartening. In K through 4 this year, we introduced the ideas of being fair and just, and then explored fairness and justice in relation to hunger and homelessness and racism. A recent lesson to commemorate Earth Day, given by a member of the Environmental Practices Group, talked about what it could mean to have fairness and justice related to the environment and climate. It discussed how reducing, reusing, and recycling what we acquire helps the Earth, and engaged the kids in identifying recyclables among household items. Excuse me. My RE experiences have made me hopeful that RE leaders and programs are helping to build lives that will exemplify our UU principles in a society that sorely needs them. The UUA Common Reads have heightened my awareness of how our estrangement from our national history has caused us to be complicit in the inflicting of enormous pain and suffering on the lives of so many, and in the process has diminished our own lives. Science and spirituality has shown me how awe and wonder can be enhanced and deepened by acquiring knowledge and sharing it with inquisitive, open-minded people. My refugee resettlement experience has introduced me to the plight and contributions to the United States of the Afghan families we have been supporting. It has made me thankful to have them a part of our community and gave me the pleasure of helping them. One of the most consequential things that CUUC has repeatedly shown me is that taking positive, constructive, and helpful action in the face of what seems to be irresistible malevolence can provide some solace from the angst and frustration of living in today's world. And during the past year, as we've had to come to terms with an onslaught of indifferent cruelty, CUUC has steadfastly provided a loving, irreplaceable refuge. And finally, I want to express my affection for one of my all-time favorite music videos, the delightful Tijou That Are the Music by the CUUC $1 Million Virtual Choir Quartet. Excerpts from an email sent by Fardeen Ghafoor, the father of our first resettled Afghan family, are a beautiful and fitting closing to this expression of my appreciation for CUUC. Quote, "Our new home and community have given us a lot. We love our new home and people. We believe to help in any way we can, and we love to do it. I am sure we will get to the other side of this when we all help and support each other. We will celebrate the victory together." Unquote. Thank you, CUUC.
Our story this morning is What is Given from the Heart, written by Patricia C. McKissack, illustrated by April Harrison. It was a rough few months for Mama and me. We were already poor, but we got poorer last April, when Daddy went to sleep on the front porch and never woke up. Mama cried and cried, 'cause Daddy didn't have a suit to be buried in. Come June, we lost the farm and moved to a run-down shotgun house in the Bottoms. On Friday the 13th, it rained frogs, everything flooded, and Smitty, my dog, disappeared. Misery loves company, Mama said, shaking her head as she swept water out the back door. I hugged her up close the way I always did when she was sad or I was scared. Long as we have our health and strength, we are blessed, James Otis, Mama said, trying to sound brave, but things didn't get any better. We got an early snowfall in November, and Christmas was skimpy, but we made it through to the new year. For I realized that February was upon us, with Valentine's Day just 2 weeks away. One Sunday, Reverend Dennis made an announcement during services. Just as we always do, we'll be delivering love boxes to needy folk in our community, he said. Iris Temple and your little girl have lost everything in a fire. We will add them to our list. Next week, bring whatever you think might be useful to them. Remember, what is given from the heart reaches the heart. James Otis, we need to help out, Mama said on the cold walk home. I came back with, how are we going to do that, Mama? We ain't got nothing ourselves. Mama kept right on talking. Sister Bunch told me the daughter's name is Sarah. She's 7, 2 years younger than you. You can find a little bit of something for her, don't you think? I wasn't convinced. What do I have that a little girl would want? Now, said Mama, remember what Reverend Dennis said? What is given from the heart reaches the heart. That night I lay warm and toasty under one of Mama's quilts. What can I give Sarah to make up for all she's lost? I wondered. I considered the blue ribbon I'd won at the school spelling bee. Now, the award was important to me, but it wouldn't mean anything to her. I looked over at my beautiful sparkling rock, the one I'd found down by the creek. But how would that help Sarah? You can't eat a rock. I drifted off to sleep. Come morning, I found Mama in the kitchen busy sewing. I know if we had a fire, I would miss my aprons, Mama explained, so I've decided to make Mrs. Temple one. But Mama, you're using your white tablecloth, the only nice thing you have. James Otis, I'm stitching with love in my heart. My hope is that this apron will give as much joy to Mrs. Temple as the tablecloth has given to me. Mama's smile was a welcome sight. That made me study harder on what I could contribute. Maybe Sarah would like crayons. I drew so many pictures with them, even the black, pink, and dark blue were missing. And I couldn't give her my pencil that was just a nub and not much eraser left either. As time flew toward Valentine's Day, I fretted more and more. I considered giving Sarah a puzzle. It didn't bother me that 2 pieces were missing, but it might bother her. That wouldn't do, not even with a bow on it. And neither would my capeless Superman Halloween costume. Then I remembered my book, Things That Roll. Mama had paid 10 cents for it at the resale shop. I read it every night until I memorized each word. Then I drew pictures of all the stuff that rolled. It got me to thinking. I gathered my crayons, my pencil, and some paper, and got busy. On the Sunday before Valentine's Day, we were off to church. Along the way, Mama told me, as usual, the trustees will deliver love boxes to the homes of needy, but Reverend Dennis has invited the Temples to receive theirs at Olive Chapel so they can meet the congregation. The church was full. Mama beamed as she carefully placed the apron in the box. When we presented the Temples with their love box filled with all kinds of clothing, food, tools, and toys, Mrs. Temple was overcome with emotion, and the congregation shouted, "Amen." Even so, Sarah seemed sad and afraid. I walked over to where they were standing. "Hi, Sarah," I said, sounding cheery-like. "My name is James Otis, and I'm pleased to meet you." "Same to you," she answered, looking at her feet. "Here," I said, handing her my gift. I wrote it, drew the pictures, and put it together by myself just for you. She managed a smile as she stared at the book I'd made. Then, real slow-like, she read the cover. From My Heart to Your Heart by James Otis Petway. It's about a little girl named Sarah, and don't tell me, she said. I want to read about myself by myself. I can't believe it, she squealed. A book about me. Then she covered her mouth to catch a giggle. Seeing little Sarah happy made me happy too. I laughed out loud. Sarah pressed the book to her heart, closed her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you, James Otis. I will keep this book forever and ever." Walking home, Mama held my hand. The Temples looked very grateful, she said. "I think we reached their hearts," I said. Mama nodded. "I'm proud of you, James Otis." "How come?" I asked. "'Cause you're you." The sky was darkening and it had started to snow. I stuck my tongue out to catch a snowflake as Mama spun joyfully round and round. Suddenly, Mama stopped. "Look, there's something on our porch," she said. I rushed ahead, and there it was. A love box had been delivered to us. And our hearts rejoiced. Our hearts rejoiced.
In prayer, we take a moment to solemnly remind ourselves of our purposes and our gratitude, that they may guide and affirm our actions and our being. Will you then pray with me? Dear force of love, Julian of Norwich, England, wrote in the 14th century, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, for there is a force of love moving through the universe that holds us fast and will never let us go." Force of love. You move through this universe. You hold us fast. You never let us go. Worldwide, reported new cases and deaths from COVID-19 both began coming down a little bit in the last 10 days. But the situation in India continues to be disheartening. The reported deaths are now averaging 3,700 a day there, and the actual deaths are likely much higher. The parts of the world that rely most on humanitarian aid are plunged into great need and greater famine as the pandemic exacerbates shortages. Here we name Yemen, Haiti, Syria, South Sudan, Tigray, and Ethiopia. Human rights are denied on a large scale. Let us name Myanmar, Afghanistan, Colombia, Palestine, and Israel. May we remember we are all human together. The human animal, like many other animals, is prone to aggression. Like many other animals, engages in competitions for mates, sometimes violently. Like many other animals, is subject to fear and sometimes stampedes. And like many other animals, we human animals love our young and grieve for our dead. Let us not, in overweening pride, think our species superior. We are much more like than unlike, even our most distant vertebrate relative, and this shared animality links us with creation, grounds us in this common earth. Our animal bodies give us most of the pleasures we know and are the source for the metaphors we weave in our more intellectual pleasures. We are made of dreams and bones, as the song says, mostly bones. And it's from the bones that the dreams emerge. Dear force of love, let us be your hands to do the work, your ears to hear the cries of the world, and your mouth to speak for justice. We are grateful for air and lungs to breathe, for sunlight and skin to feel it, for the bonds of community that hold us, for the announcement that the latest Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been contained, for the hard work of those sewing to seek an end to menstrual period poverty, especially for refugees, for medical personnel who have been overstressed for over a year and continue to serve need. We ask of ourselves the mindful intention to delight in what is good, confront what is cruel, heal what is broken. So for all that has been spoken and shared, and for everything we are carrying silently today in our hearts, let us observe a moment of silence.
In his Prelude in A minor, Chopin does not seem to feel the need to establish any particular key. The piece meanders until finally settling on the key of A minor at the end, as if to introduce some unheard work.
Sometimes, maybe, you're inhibited by an unreasonable fear. Suppose you'd like more caring from someone, but past experience makes you cautious about revealing those vulnerable longings, so you play it safe and don't ask for anything. In what ways for you has an emerging self-expression been inhibited? Maybe you'd like to get closer to someone, but risk of rejection inhibits you. Maybe your expression of your feelings is inhibited, or a desire to do something. Sometimes the inhibition is reasonable, but often it's not, because the brain's negativity bias overestimates both the likelihood of a bad outcome from self-expression and the amount of pain you'll feel if something bad actually happens. Start by observing how this sequence proceeds in your mind. Self-expression to expectation of pain to inhibition. Next, challenge your expectations. Are they really true? Help yourself appreciate the fact that expressing your emotions and wants in reasonably skillful ways will usually lead to good results. Then move out of your comfort zone by taking calculated risks. Start with the easy ones and work your way up the ladder of increasingly vulnerable and high-stakes self-expression. A wonderful freedom grows in the heart as you do this. You're less cowed by dreaded experiences. If a painful result does happen, notice you can cope with it okay. Overall, it's probably worth occasional pain for the pleasures of fuller self-expression. Last, when it turns out fine, take it in. For more details on risking the dreaded experience, see the post at CUUCmatters.org. The link is in your eCommunitarian.
I invite you now to sing along with the Edgewood United Church in our hymn number 125, From the Crush of Wealth and Power.
From the crush of wealth and power, something broken in us all, wakes the Spirit's silent tower, beating with a poignant call. I know my wounds again, even now our hearts are weary of the friendly need so
What do I need? It's not a bad question to ask ourselves. What are my needs? Are they being met? Good questions from time to time. It's good to check in with ourselves and tend to our own well-being. And then there's this other question. What do others need? What do other people need? People of other cultures and races? What do people of other genders or transgender or no gender need? And what will our grandchildren's grandchildren need of us today? What do other species need? Other mammals, other warm-blooded beings, other vertebrates, other animals, other living beings. What do ecosystems need? What does the planet need? In some cases, the answer might be leave them alone and they'll take care of their own needs. Still, there is something we owe each other. What We Owe to Each Other is the title of a 1998 book by Tim Scanlon, the philosopher. The book was the inspiration for and mentioned by name in the TV series The Good Place. So here are these two questions. What do I need? What do I owe myself? And what do others need? What do I owe to others? One very common and perhaps intuitive approach to these questions is to say, well, we try to balance them. They pull in opposite directions. There's a tension between what I owe myself and what I owe others. And the best a person can do is try to find the right balance between competing poles, giving the appropriate amount of attention and concern to each side. I don't think the balance approach is the most helpful here, the truest to what your own and others' needs actually call for. For some of life's questions, this balance approach is right on, but not this one. For instance, when it comes to work versus family, leisure, recreation, those competing poles do require finding a right balance. Finding that balance may not always be easy, but trying to find it is the right approach there. But the question of what I owe myself and what I owe others calls for a different approach. On this Mother's Day, let us turn to the wisdom of mothering. There is some balancing involved, particularly that work-family balance, but the general calling of mothering isn't about balancing, but a combination of serving the collective need and tending to the individual need that's greatest at that moment. There's the paradoxical reality that on the one hand, others must be respected as distinct beings with their own preferences and life plans that might not even make sense to you, while on the other hand, there are no others. All of reality is you. Walt Whitman expressed this awareness in Song of Myself. He identifies with every being and every object, for he understands that a self is all selves. He recognizes the suffering of others as his very own. Embody all presences outlawed or suffering. See myself in prison shaped like another man and feel the dull, unintermitted pain. For me, the keepers of convicts shoulder their carbines and keep watch. It is I let out in the morning and barred at night. Not a mutineer walks handcuffed to jail, but I am handcuffed to him and walk by his side. I am less the jolly one there and more the silent one with sweat on my twitching lips. Not a youngster is taken for larceny, but I go up too and am tried and sentenced. Not a cholera patient lies at the last gasp, but I also lie at the last gasp. My face is ash-colored, my sinews gnarl away from me, people retreat. Askers embody themselves in me, and I am embodied in them. I project my hat, sit shamefaced, and beg. What do I owe myself? What do I owe others? The two questions are really one question. And the answer is compassion. Compassion for all that is, including that skin bag walking around and answering to the name that's printed on your ID card. The general answer to what do I need is compassion. On this Mother's Day, we look to the quintessence of what mothering is, compassion. Compassion is an active wish that a being not suffer and a feeling of sympathetic concern. If a mother's child falls and hurts himself, she wants him to be out of pain. If you hear that a friend is in the hospital or out of work or going through a divorce, you feel for her and hope that everything will be all right. Compassion is our nature. It's an important part of the neural and psychological systems we evolved to nurture children, bond with mates, and hold together the village that it takes to raise a child. Let's look at self-compassion, because one thing we all need is self-compassion, self-mothering. Self-compassion is not self-pity. It's simply recognizing, oh, this is tough. This hurts. And bringing the same warm-hearted wish for suffering to lessen or end that you would bring to any dear friend grappling with the same pain, upset, or challenge as you. Take a moment to acknowledge your difficulties, your challenges and suffering. Bring to mind the feeling of being with someone you know cares about you, your mother, or if that won't work for you, another family member, or a dear friend, or a spirit, or God, or a pet. Let yourself feel that you matter to this being who wants you to feel good and do well in life. Bring to mind your difficulties and imagine that this being who cares about you is feeling and expressing compassion for you. Imagine their facial expression, gestures, stance, and attitude toward you. Let yourself receive this compassion, taking in its warmth, concern, and goodwill. Open to feeling more understood and nurtured, more peaceful and settled. Imagine someone you naturally feel compassion for, perhaps a child or a family member. Imagine how you would feel toward that person if he or she were dealing with whatever is hard for you. Let feelings of compassion fill your body and mind. Extend them toward that person, perhaps visualized as a kind of light radiating from your heart. Notice what it's like to be compassionate and then extend the same sense of compassion toward yourself. Say to yourself, may this pain pass. May things improve for me. May I feel less upset over time. As you may recognize, this is prayer. Understanding that the point of prayer is not to get some super being to grant your wish, but rather it is the orientation you give yourself by merely expressing the wish. Have warmth for yourself. Acknowledge your difficulties and pain. Feel compassion sinking into you, becoming a part of you, soothing and strengthening you. People have studied self-compassion, and the studies find that having compassion for yourself reduces self-criticism, reduces stress hormones, facilitates resilience, and helps heal the deficits of care that might go back to childhood. When you ask yourself, what do I need? And you answer, compassion for all beings, including myself, the question then becomes, what does compassion look like right now, right here? We have looked at the including myself part, and we'll look at the all beings parts after our Mother's Day related interlude. Adam?
Thank you, Reverend Meredith. At this week's staff meeting, Meredith and I discussed a few possible ideas for today's musical selections. Why do some pieces seem to need to change keys while others don't? What about music for Mother's Day? Is there music about maternity? So imagine my delight in discovering this piece by the Uzbekistani-born composer Elena Katz-Chernin called Removalist Rag. The composer tells us that she started this piece in one town in Australia and started it in the key of D minor, then moved as a single mom with her 3 kids to another home and finished it in the key of C sharp minor.
Self-compassion is really simply compassion. Exercising compassion strengthens it. The experience of receiving caring primes circuits in your brain to give it. As Kristen Neff says, the more we're able to keep our hearts open to ourselves, the more we have available to give to others. To tie this into the current situation of our country, so many Americans don't have much available for others, and that's a problem. Seems to be a growing problem. Along with the disintegration of trust in each other and the institutions through which we build the collective good, has come a diminution of public compassion. We see this in resistance to masks and vaccine hesitancy. I want to share with you the beginning of David Brooks's column from 2 days ago. He does use a mild swear word, which I will leave in. He writes, "Could today's version of America have been able to win World War II? It hardly seems possible. That victory required national cohesion, voluntary sacrifice for the common good, and trust in institutions and each other. America's response to COVID-19 suggests that we no longer have sufficient quantities of any of those things. In 2020, Americans failed to socially distance and test for the coronavirus and suffered among the highest infection and death rates in the developed world. Millions decided that wearing a mask infringed their individual liberty. Experts now believe that America will not achieve herd immunity anytime soon. Instead of being largely beaten, this disease could linger as a more manageable threat for generations. A major reason is that about 30% of the US population is reluctant to get vaccinated. We're not asking you to storm the beaches of Iwo Jima. We're asking you to walk into a damn CVS. End quote. Between World War II and today, we became a country that no longer, by and large, understood what do I need to be the same as what does the greater good need. In The Atlantic last week, staff writer Derek Thompson wrote that he contacted people who were refusing to get a COVID-19 vaccine. They said things like, I'm not especially vulnerable. I may have already gotten the virus. If I get it in the future, it won't be that bad. The risk from an experimental vaccine seems greater than the risk from the disease. Even if all of that were true, which it usually isn't, notice that they are thinking only about what's right for them as individuals. Thompson wrote, I made this case to several no-vaxxers. Your grandparents, elderly neighbors, and immunocompromised friends will be safer if you're vaccinated, even if you've already been vaccinated. This argument gave several no-vaxxers a bit of pause. End quote. It apparently hadn't occurred to them that they might have any responsibilities to the nation and the most vulnerable people in it. A lot of Americans of all races and genders are not accustomed to thinking in terms of compassion for themselves or for others. They do guard their individual interests, but not in a self-compassionate way, more in a defensive, self-protective way, a way that sees the self's interests as separate from and sometimes competing with other interests, instead of seeing that truly the self is others. And there is no separation between others' interests and one's own. Amit Sood, MD, is author of The Mayo Clinic Handbook for Happiness. Writing on the Mayo Clinic website, he says, compassion is your ability to experience others' feelings from joy to sorrow with a desire to help. And compassion can make you happier and healthier. The pursuit of compassion may make you happier than the pursuit of happiness. Giving or receiving compassion can boost your bond with others, make you healthier. The reason, the happier you are, the easier it is to commit to healthy habits. Improve your mental health by decreasing your stress levels, temporarily shift your attention away from your own challenges and put things into perspective and enhance your spiritual well-being. Dr. Sood then concludes, the joy you'll feel after committing a random act of kindness will give you a sense of elation that money just can't buy. You may ask, what about compassion fatigue? Compassion fatigue is an issue among caregivers and can include emotional, physical, and spiritual distress in those providing care to another. This is the flip side of the separation coin. If your concept of self and other is that they are separate and you focus only on self's needs, that's a problem. But if you assume there's a separation and focus only on others' needs, that's also a problem. Compassion toward all beings includes you. and you are not separate. With self-compassion and authentic, sustainable self-care daily, there is no compassion fatigue. There may still be plain ordinary fatigue. Issues of overwork may remain. And I know the pandemic has made for a lot of very overworked caregivers. And I sure hope they get some easing of their workloads soon, just as I do every overworked person. So when social justice comes up, when there is talk about the suffering of people oppressed and treated unfairly, traumatized, exploited, not merely dehumanized, but de-animalized, objectified, utterly excluded from concern and respect, do you think, ugh, this just makes me feel bad. I don't like feeling guilty. I want my congregation's worship to be spiritually satisfying to me, to give me uplift and inspiration. That's what I need. Okay, I believe that that is what you need. And there is nothing more uplifting and inspiring, nothing that satisfies the spirit more than compassion, the active wish that a being not suffer, and a feeling of sympathetic concern, empathy with a desire to help. With compassion, we want to know where the pain is. We want to know the details of it, where it came from, how it manifests, how widespread it is, so that we can more skillfully respond. On this Mother's Day, as we think about and honor mothers and mothering, let me ask you now to call to mind the image of a compassionate, skillful mother. I hope that you had one or have one, though I recognize that not everyone did. This mother finds a wonderful joy in mothering. Maybe it is mothering under challenging conditions, like Imani Perry in this year's common read, Breathe, when she writes, "But no matter how many may say so, my sons, you are not a problem. Mothering you is not a problem. It is a gift, a vast one, a breathtaking one, beautiful." So call to mind your image of a compassionate, skillful mother. And when she hears that one of her children is hurting, she does not say, "I don't want to hear about that. That's a downer." She knows that sometimes children experimentally complain, just probing to see what response they might get. But she also knows that a complaint that is persistent, consistent, and insistent indicates a real issue. When there is a real issue, she wants to know all about it. How did this happen? How bad does it hurt? She wants to hear about it, learn about it, so she can best respond. I'm not talking about some extraordinary, almost superhuman mother. This is just ordinary, everyday parenting. And if she herself, it turns out, has been doing something that causes or worsens the problem, she wants to know all about that too, so she can see what's to change. The call to social justice is like that. It's the call to compassion. And there is nothing that brings greater joy, or is more inspiring and uplifting, or is more spiritually healing. We ask, what do I need? Compassion, I believe, is what we all need. May it be so. Amen.
I invite you now to sing our hymn number 1030, Siyahamba. Please join in with the Angel City Chorale and the Amy Foundation Choir, conducted by Richard Sibakulo Mbovani.
See
Be safe, be well. And now please join Joe Majak for our chalice extinguishing words as you extinguish your chalice at home.
Please say with me these words as we extinguish our chalices. Every one of us is held in creation's hand, a part of the interdependent cosmic web. Therefore, strangers need not be enemies. No one is saved until all, the whole of creation, are saved.
The interconnected web of existence makes us what we are and gives us our light to shine.
All that is belongs to you, and you belong to all that is. Do not forget. Do not forget, even for a moment.
And go in peace.
Troubles, then I've got 'em too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. If we stick together, we can see it through. 'Cause you've got a friend in me. Yeah, you've got a friend in me. Now some of the folks like me are a little bit smarter than I am. They get stronger too. Maybe, but none of them will ever love you the way I do. Just me and you, boy. And as the years go by, our friendship will never die. You're gonna see it's our destiny. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me.
Hard to play after the bird. But this Mother's Day, as I think about the hardworking, self-sacrificing, loving mothers everywhere, I want to center the music of Clara Wieck Schumann, who raised 8 children while caring for her husband, the composer Robert Schumann, in the throes of his mental illness, all the while giving concerts as a pianist and writing her own music. Here's her mazurka in G major.